Hi everyone, my name is Matt and today we are at the view from the Shard in London, talking all about gin. For this purpose, I will show you two of the beautiful bottles from the local City of London distillery. Before that, I'll talk you a little bit about the distillery and we talk all about gin. City of London distillery was opened in 2012. And in December same year, the first gin was bottled. City of London is in very historical area called Square Mile. Actually, we are the one and only distillery within this area and the first one to open for almost 200 years. Before we're gonna go to the tasting of the gin, I'll talk you more a little bit about the gin itself. What's the gin? Where it's coming from? So the first recipe for a juniper flavored spirit is coming from the end of 15th century from the lower countries, currently called Netherlands. So back in the days, the juniper spirit, which we can't call it gin right now, have a medicinal purpose and was actually made from the malt spirit, which was totally different from the gin you know today. It was quite yeasty and was actually closer to the new make unaged spirit made for the purpose of whiskey. So during this time, this juniper-led spirit was actually called as Juniper or Juniper. And after some time, when during the 80 Years' War, the Dutch soldiers, supported by the English troops, used to drink it to put themselves in a battle mode, which nowadays we believe that was the beginning of the term of a Dutch courage. I think now deadlines works a little bit better for us rather than a sip of gin, but I'll leave it for you. Soon after that, William the Orange married the British Queen Mary, came to England, and alongside with the English troops, he brought this juniper spirit. Well, William the Orange, despite anything what was French, so he heavily taxed anything imported from France, especially brandy, which was the most popular spirit drink back in the days. In the same time, he lowered the taxes on corn and passed the legislation, which now is called as a Distilling Act, encourage people to actually distill gin or the spirit with the juniper flavor at home. The procedure was quite simple. The only thing you need is to put notice, give it a little bit of warning for your neighbors, let them know you're distilling spirits, and that's it. Well, that led to the gin craze, where, especially in London, 1 in 4 households were actually distilling gin. On average, the quarter of London population was consuming a pint of gin a day, which, yeah, could give you a little bit of a vision how the gin was popular. Unfortunately, it have the extreme influence on the society. So soon government decided to crack down on gin because of the horrendous amount of deaths. And back in the days, this gin was really poorly distilled, very often mixed with turpentine or sulfuric acid. So yeah, dangerous spirit. Well, now we got few rules around this, and we're happy to say that we have access to the actually true gin. So today gin is described as distilled spirit flavored with juniper. It's quite simple, but there is a lot of more around this. First of all, the base for the distillation need to be rectified to 90% of ABV spirit, which after is flavored with juniper berries, and as the ending result have to have at least 37.5 alcohol per volume. Well, besides of this general description, we have actually few methods. So very often, whenever you're in a shop and you're looking for your favorite gin, you can see on the label description a London dry gin. Well, what does it mean? First of all, it doesn't have to be made in London. Unlike to Scotch whiskey or cognac, this term apply more to a method rather than to a specific location. So a London dry gin can be made anywhere in the world, but there is a couple of rules applied to it. So first of all, everything has to happen inside the still, the copper still traditionally. Nothing else apart from water can be added after the process of distillation. So after the distillation, we're cutting down the spirit with water to 37.5 of ABV, and now we have our gin. Obviously, the juniper has to be a lead flavor inside the spirit. The second method, described as a distilled gin, is very similar to the London dry method, but another additional flavors can be added after the process of distillation. Could be sugars, could be flavors, could be another distillation with extra botanicals. Well, it doesn't mean that the gin is worse. It's just made in a different way. The last method we describe as a compound gin, and actually is an amazing method to make gin at home. So whatever you need is in your local store. Buy a bottle of vodka, a handful of juniper berries, some peels and different botanicals. Chuck everything in a jar, fill up with vodka, and let it sit for, well, you tell me. Taste blindly every couple of days, and whenever it's ready, and probably it's the best gin because it's yours. Well, let's get to the tasting. So, as I mentioned, we tasting today those two goodness from a City of London Distillery. So the first gin is an authentic London dry gin, which is traditionally made, as I mentioned, with the London dry method. Please grab a glass, pour yourself a gin, and first of all, let's smell it. So on the nose, you can feel very strong juniper with a bit of herbal notes and a big zesty and fruity aromas. Before you taste it, bear in mind is a strong spirit. So the first sip probably gonna burn your taste buds. So take a first sip. Keep it on your tongue for like a second, swallow it, and take a deep breath. Probably right now, the only thing you feel is 41.3% of ABV. But don't be afraid, have another sip. Well, now we can have all the flavors. On the palate, we take some anise star from the licorice and a lot of grapefruit zest. It's really nice, quite fresh gin to drink. And the finish is very long, clean, with citrus notes of orange and lemon peels. Well, most of you probably drink gin is with tonic, so this one makes absolutely brilliantly with classic Indian tonic. Take a nice, good slice of fresh grapefruit, chuck it inside, fill up the glass with ice, and yeah, here you go. That's probably your Monday afternoon. The second gin is the Immersing Orange. So this is our take on a nowadays flavored gins, but don't be mistaken, it's still dry. There is no sugar added. So on the nose, you have a big, bold orange flavor, followed with the juniper. On the palate, well, it's definitely orange. Definitely orange with a quite heavy cardamom notes, a little bit of warming flavors of the cassia bark, which is a little bit similar to cinnamon with a more earthy flavors. Well, on the nose, that's all about orange. Actually, this gin we described as distilled gin. It's not a London dry just because we're adding additional punch of orange after the distillation process using the vapor distillation method. So what are we doing inside the still? We're hanging a basket full of fresh orange peels and let the vapes go through that and gain as much of a flavor. And yeah, that's the beauty of our gins. Also, the orange gin again mix really well with classic tonic. Finish this up with nice fresh lemon zest, and here you go. Well, it's perfect for winter because of the warm spices, so I'm sure you're gonna be enjoying it later this year. Right. We talk about gin. We talk about a little bit about gin and tonic, how to make gin and tonic from our gins. But what about cocktails? So personally, for me, when I think about a gin cocktail, well, here you go, Martini. So the only thing I need is a good bottle of gin, mixing glass. If you're making this at home, well, you can take the jug from the French press, you can take the bottom of the shaker, anything, you can put the ice inside and stir it with a spoon. We will need beautiful Martini glass because, well, that's all about elegance. Remember always fill your glass before. So, in a perfect world, those glasses should sit in your fridge just ready to go for your guests to arrive and serve some delicious martini. The last ingredient for the martini is dry vermouth. In this case, we're going to use Martini Extra Dry, which is available in any store across the country. But guys, feel free to play with different vermouths, with the different ratios, and I'm sure you're going to find your favorite ones. So, for this purpose, we're going to take a bar spoon. If you don't have a bar spoon, it's just a simple teaspoon. We're going to add just a little bit of vermouth, just a touch. So 1 bar spoon inside the glass. A good measure of our City of London Distillery Authentic Dry Gin. If you don't have such measure and you're using a simple shot glass, make sure you add 2. And, well, a glass full of ice. And gently take your time, stir it well, to the point that the drink is already nice and cold. Well, don't afraid to taste it first. Oh, that's just about right. Well, pour out the ice. and finish this up with a big, fresh grapefruit zest. Please never rub the glass with the zest. It's just because the oils inside the zest are extremely bitter. So the only thing you're gonna feel is just the bitterness and a grapefruit flavor. Please enjoy it. You probably wonder, well, what about the shaken martini? I would leave that for 007 only. This method, way much better. Thank you, guys. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yes, and we have quite a few questions that have come in for you here, Matt. The first one with the most votes is from Bill, who wants to know, how much alcohol must a true gin have?
How much alcohol?
Yes, how much alcohol, like what alcohol percentage is in a true gin?
So to call spirit as a gin, you have to have at least 37.5 alcohol by volume. It's all about finding the right balance. There's some great gins which have 37.5. There's some great gins which are above 40%. So, well, it's all about the taste and your preference, to be honest.
And then Diane wants to know, what's the difference between a London dry gin and a Bombay Sapphire gin?
Well, Bombay Sapphire is a London dry gin. It's exactly the same method, everything happening in one still. So yes, Bombay Sapphire is called, it's a London dry gin. So like I mentioned before, it's more a method rather than the location. And Bombay Sapphire followed this method.
So very little difference then is the answer.
Yes.
Great. Jilly wants to know, what do the juniper berries do to the gin, and does it improve the taste?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the juniper berries, what do they do to the gin? Does it improve the taste? Is it part of the fermentation? What's their role?
No. So, well, most of the gin producers, they actually redistilling already made spirit, neutral grain spirit, which there's no process of fermentation. The juniper have to be there to call spirit a gin. And again, there is a lot of different gins. They're heavier with juniper flavor. Some of them have a little bit less of it. Again, this is their decision behind the producers. And again, finding the right balance. You know, smell, the sense of taste is very subjective. So for me, I like, for example, gins which are more, which are heavier with juniper. Some people are just the opposite.
And Bill wants to know, what's the best tonic that you recommend to have with a gin?
Oh, well, that's a tough question. Well, it depends from the gin, depends from the botanicals. Right now on the market, we have 100 different brands of gin. The best tonic is a premium tonic. So whenever you want to have a good gin and tonic made with a good gin, just make sure you're gonna invest in a good premium tonic. There's no such brand which is the best. Every single tonic is a little bit different and suit different gin. So it depends from the gin you want to drink. It's the best way to follow some suggestions from the producer, which tonic is the best to use. And you know, sky is the limit. Try to play with different tonics and find the right one for you.
Great, so have a little fun with it then.
Of course. It's all about fun.
It's all about fun. Someone comments, so it looks very cloudy outside, but maybe you could take a moment to explain what we would be seeing behind you, and maybe explain a little bit about where we are right now.
Right, we are at the view at the Shard, so the tallest building in London with the highest viewing point in London. So behind me, besides those lovely London weather, we should see the panoramic view for most of the London. So in the end, we should be able to see St. Paul's Cathedral, which look quite similar to this. Yes, and the rest of London.
Yeah, and I think you're mentioning beforehand that the distillery where the gin that you're using is made is quite nearby as well, that you could normally see that distillery from the window.
Yes, so as I mentioned, the City of London Distillery is within the square mile in the City of London. So it's quite historical. Back in the days when the gin was extremely popular, there was a lot of different distilleries. Unfortunately, due to the government regulation, most of them couldn't survive. And we actually the first one within the square mile to open after 200 years. So it's quite a bold statement.
And that leads into another person wants to know, why is London gin so famous?
Well, in my opinion, London gin, the gin was perfected in London. In the end, well, it's a quite interesting fact. You know who's the biggest consumer of gin in the world? It's actually Philippines. So London, well, I would say is the origin of the London dry gin. That's why it's so popular. That's why anytime people arrive in the UK, well, gin and tonic is the drink of the choice.
And we have a couple of follow-up questions from earlier. On the Bombay Sapphire topic, they want to know what makes that so blue then, if it's so similar to the London gin.
Actually, Bombay Sapphire is not blue, it's just the bottle.
Just the bottle, there you go.
Just the bottle, the liquid is crystal clear.
So
it's like with the City of London, as you can probably see, it's just the bottle.
And then on the juniper berry thread from earlier, someone wants to know why some people, or some, I suppose, bars put juniper berries into their drinks that they serve at the bar.
It's just to associate with the ingredients. So whenever you choose your, let's say, gin and tonic, and right now, because all the bars are great and all the bars putting so much effort to deliver the true experience to, very simple gin and tonic, they garnish the tonic with a different botanicals, which most likely appear as one of the ingredients in the gin. So as juniper is the must-have inside the gin, it's a good way to highlight it.
And we've got a few more questions here, so I'll just take this moment to remind anyone tuning in that they can use the Q&A button at the bottom of their screen to ask their question to make sure we get to it. But you can also vote for your favorite questions there, by the way. The most popular one right now is Bill wondering, how tall is the view from the Shard?
How
tall is the view from the Shard?
800 meters, and well, you can't see it now, but it's really high.
Yeah, it's even more reason for people to go back with slightly better weather, I think.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Sophie, tuning in, wants to know, what's your favorite gin cocktail other than the Martini?
Well, I would say a Negroni. So it's a very simple cocktail. It's a combination of gin, sweet vermouth, and Campari. It's a bittersweet cocktail known as a good aperitif.
Great, and we're getting a couple more questions coming in. One is another follow-up on the juniper berries. So do the juniper berries in a drink change the taste, or is it just purely a decorative garnish?
No, it's just a decorative garnish. So the juniper berries, they do not infuse that fast to change the flavor of your drink. If you actually take a bottle of vodka, add some juniper berries inside, and leave it for a few days, you will feel the difference. But as a garnishing gin and tonic, nothing whatsoever.
Yeah. It is brilliant. Thank you. We have another new question in from Bill, which is getting some likes, which is, how many gin and tonics is too many?
Well, sky's the limit. Whenever you can book yourself an Uber home, yeah, that's totally fine. And guys, please, obviously, drink responsibly.
Yeah. And then we have, oh, and yes, a question that Katie just is messaging me. So someone wants to know if you can see the Tower of London from the Shard. Yes, indeed, you can. I've actually seen it from the Shard while enjoying a cocktail there myself. So yes, you can. You can see lots of London there. Another question, a little more personal, Matt, and this is our last question left. So get any more in now if you have one. But the last question is, when did you begin bartending? What first got you into gin and bartending in general?
Oh wow, that's a very, very long and old journey. It's around 10 years ago. You know, we all been in the bars. Always were quite fascinated by the way how the bartenders make drink, how to make it, the knowledge behind in their heads about the spirits. It's quite impressive to me, and yeah, I just put my sleeves up and get behind the bar and yeah, start learning. I love it until today.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for sharing some of that knowledge with us today. That's all the questions we've had. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. This virtual experience was part of the Tiqets Awakening Weeks. This is a 6-week celebration of the reopening of more than 100 museums and attractions in 6 countries around the world, one of which is the view from the Shard. These venues have really worked around the clock to reimagine their experiences and introduce new hygiene measures, making it safe for visitors again. And so they're really happy to roll out the welcome mat with these online experiences so that everyone can join the experience and reawaken these cultural institutions worldwide. So if you're in the UK, please stop by. You can experience the reawakening in person. You can visit tiqets.com/blog/awakening weeks for more information on all of the awakening weeks around the world, including this one. And then just thanks again to Matt. Thanks to the View from the Shard for participating. We look forward to finding more ways to experience culture with all of you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in.